everybody, or good morning, depending on where you're watching from or when you're listening to this. And Merry Christmas. This is Christmas Eve here in the United States when this is going live. I know those of you who will listen in replay or listen on the podcast, it won't be that time of the year more than likely. But I did just want to reach out to all of my audience right now and say that to them. And I won't be here next week. So Happy New Year, 2025. Coming up. So I thank you all that you have been with me all of the past 4 years now. We've been on #NoLimits. And I so appreciate all of your attention and your questions and your comments and just subscribing. So I ask you that you continue to please push this out to other people by subscribing, by liking, by commenting. That gives it more notice of the algorithms. And so then other people can enjoy #NoLimits as well. So let me go about who I am. I am Shelley Kino, and I am the host of #NoLimits. And #NoLimits is about people whose society places limits upon, but who have busted through those limits. Ophelia says in Hamlet, "We know who we are, but not who we will be." And I believe that to be 100% true, and that there's not a better example or more beautiful example than the caterpillar turning into the butterfly. It can't be easy. If you know anything about it, if you don't, I'm going to give you a little brief science lesson. The caterpillar literally dissolves into its cells and then reforms into the butterfly, but that's not enough. It then has to struggle to get out of the cocoon in order for its wings to be strong enough to take it everywhere it's going to go once it gets out of that cocoon. That can't be easy. I can't imagine that that's easy, but neither is busting through the limits that society places upon people. And today, my guest is going to share a remarkable story, and one that I am really happy to be bringing to you, especially right here at Christmas time, because this is kind of a birth story from my understanding of it. And so, Franke, thank you so much for joining me today. How are you doing?
Thank you, Shelley. I'm delighted to be here and very special on Christmas Eve.
Yes. So I so appreciate your time on Christmas Eve. I know we've had to reschedule a couple of times. Both of us have had different things come up. And so I'm happy that it worked out today and appreciate your giving of your time on Christmas Eve. So Franke, tell me about yourself. Tell my audience about you.
Well, I'm an activist and an author of 4 books. And my most recent book is Freeing Teresa. And that story is about my sister, Teresa, and how we helped Teresa get out of a nursing home that she'd been placed in and really reject the limits that had been put on her and go on to live her life fully.
Yeah, and that is so incredible. And I'm really looking forward to digging deeper into your sister's story. So if you don't mind, just go ahead and just start telling us. I don't obviously want you to tell us the whole book, but tell us the highlights.
Well, in 2013, my sister Teresa was living with my dad, and Teresa has Down syndrome. And my other siblings were concerned what will happen to Teresa when Dad can no longer care for her? Where will she live? And the solution that they proposed was that Teresa would live in a nursing home. And when I heard that, I went, no, that's so limiting. This is going to erase her future. We've just got to come up with a better solution. And there's so many, from group homes to living in, there are things like lights that help you to work with other families and have a house that is shared. So there are many solutions that I saw, but my siblings didn't want that. And so they still thought that a nursing home was the best solution. And finally, I thought, you know what? They're really going to do it. And they're going to put Teresa in a nursing home. We have to stop that. And the only way I could think to stop it was that my husband and I would offer to take Teresa. And so we did on, I think it was December 22nd. And the offer was rejected by my siblings, and they just went along their merry way and put took Teresa out for breakfast one morning, and a nice fancy breakfast, and then checked her into a nursing home. And when I heard by email that night, I was aghast, and my father was aghast. And we thought, what can we do to help Teresa get out of there? And over the next few days, we devised a plan. We spoke with a lot of different activists and lawyers, and we realized that we might be able to get Teresa out. So we went down there and visited Teresa and looked at the admission papers, which, if anyone is listening and in a similar situation, I would say, look at the paperwork, because the paperwork told us that my father still had authority to sign Teresa out, which was great.
Wow.
And the other bit of information was that I'm an activist, and I have experience as an activist with the federal government. So I was aware that it was necessary to record everything. So I did, and I recorded every which way I could, from audio to video, and writing it down. And that has been enormously successful and made all the difference in writing the book, because I had the actual words people used to explain what was happening, and really kept track of the events. So anyway, we got Teresa out, and my father was so pleased, that Teresa was coming home. And Teresa made the decision herself. Do I want more desserts at the nursing home? Do I want to stay here forever? Or do I want to come home as Dad? I think I will come home as Dad. And so we gave Teresa that decision-making opportunity, and she agreed that she wanted to come home. So we, raced outside to a cab, and just at the last minute, the nurse said, "Oh, wait a minute, your sister Deirdre wants to speak with you before you take Teresa out." We didn't wait. We just went home to my father's condo, and we celebrated with some Starbucks, and we were so happy. And Dad was so pleased that he finally had Teresa home. And then the phone started ringing, and my siblings were not happy. They were threatening to call the police if we did not return Teresa. So you'll have to read the book.
That's perfect. That's perfect. So let me ask you some questions that hopefully won't give away more of what is in the book. But one of the first things that you mentioned, and it happens to go along with my title, of course, is how limiting a nursing home can be. So what was and maybe you don't know the answer to this, but the thinking of your siblings in wanting the nursing home compared to those other places that you mentioned? And I guess, first of all, I think I need to make a clarification, because I'm in the United States. I don't think you're in the United States, are you?
Yes, I'm in Vancouver, Canada. So There's a big difference. So in Canada, if you have an intellectual disability, the nursing home is paid for. So this would have, living in a nursing home, would have given Teresa a roof over her head and food in her belly for the rest of her life. And it was an easy solution to take care of Teresa. However, it totally discounted her right to be free and her right to live her life and enjoy it. And, I was just aghast. And there's a Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedom that says we're all equal, and Teresa should have had the same rights as anyone else. And who would voluntarily decide to go into a nursing home when they're middle-aged? I couldn't see that. And there's the UN CRPD, which protects the rights of people with disabilities to live in the community. So we had both those things. But the most important thing is that Teresa has feelings, and she has benefited from the love and care that I've been able to give her this past 11 years that she's lived with me. And these are opportunities that she would never have had if she had lived in a sterile nursing home.
Right. And that kind of leads into the next question of what you mentioned, that, how limiting a nursing home is. So what we have in the United States are, we have group homes or we have SILAs, and both of those environments allow for participation in the community. If they want to have a job, if they can find a job, they can have that job. If they do lots of field trips and lots of excursions, and like I said, they're right in the community. They can wander around the town, get to know their neighbors. And my understanding is they're kind of free to move around. I mean, they have to tell people, they can't just walk out, but they have to tell people, hey, I'm going for a walk, or I'm going to do this or whatever. But it doesn't sound like, my knowledge of nursing homes, at least here in the United States, it's not like that. And it doesn't sound like that would be the same as far as the ones that you're talking about. And so exactly what you said, it's so limiting. I mean, as far as the, like, what skills would she develop while she was there? And
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like they were kind of looking, she could have been there for 40 plus years.
Yes, she would have been with people much, much older than her, decades older, and sick, and in some cases dying. So, but there is an important example of a woman in the United States named Jenny Hatch, who took her case to court. She did not want to live in a nursing home, which is what her parents wanted, or her mother wanted. And so she fought to not be put in a group home, and she won. And it's a great story. And if anyone is interested, it's Jenny Hatch, and there's a Justice for Jenny website.
Oh, awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that. And, I think so often that when people are considering putting, someone in a group home or a SILA, I mean, it's not, first of all, it's not an easy decision. I've never experienced it myself, but in talking with people who have had to make that decision, it is a very difficult decision to make. And then just, to think about that, I think in a way it comes, in many ways, it comes from a good place. It's, in a person's heart. They're not wanting to do it to be mean or cruel, but they're not always understanding all the opportunities and options of what's available to them. And so it kind of sounds like maybe with your situation, with Jenny Hatch's situation, there were more options than what were considered.
Yeah. And I think that we have to put ourselves in the shoes of the, say, of Teresa, who has an intellectual disability, and think, would we really want to be in that situation in a nursing home at 49 and being told when to get up each day, what to eat, not being allowed to have, a computer, a desk, artwork all around you, and being able to have freedom of movement? It was very limiting. And so I'm so pleased that we got Teresa out. She came to live with us, and we survived the many attempts to get Teresa back. And we moved across the country to BC. So the story originally started in Toronto, Ontario, but we found that we got so much pushback from our family that we moved to the other side of the country. And Teresa has, she did a petition standing up for human rights, asking for the government to apologize. And that was enormously successful. 25,000 people signed the petition. And Teresa looks so cute and darling. In 2014, she's marching along saying that she's a female and she has Down syndrome and she didn't want to be in a nursing home. And it was just beautiful. And so 25,000 people reacted, and it was so wonderful. They signed the petition.
Incredible.
Yeah, but that wasn't good enough. The government didn't do anything. And so it took another 2 years of advocacy and a letter from the BC Civil Liberties Organization and half a dozen other disability organizations in order to really put the government's feet to the fire And we had a fantastic situation where the a investigative reporter really championed this, and we got on television, and the government apologized on TV to Teresa for putting her in a nursing home. So
wow,
that was in July 22nd, 2016.
That's amazing! Congratulations, that's a big win.
Yeah. Because the government never admits it's wrong usually.
Right, exactly. And, 25,000 people is a lot of people, but in the country, in the grand scheme of Canada, I sadly see why the government didn't pay as much attention to it when it was 25,000, but then when it became, like maybe a million or two are now seeing this.
And bad PR look, they decided to take action.
Yeah, exactly. Something you said that you said was invaluable to you when you wrote the book, but it's also an invaluable strategy for anyone going through really anything. And that was that you recorded everything. And I liked that you talked about the fact that you audio recorded some things, you video recorded some things, but you wrote things down. Yeah. And I think we forget when we think of recording that writing it down is recording it.
Yes. It's so important. So when I first got the inkling that my siblings were going to do this plan, I was just like so concerned. And I thought, this doesn't make sense at all. I need to get some perspective. So I decided to start recording right away. So this was probably in November of 2013. And so I interviewed each of my siblings and asked them why they wanted to put Teresa in a nursing home. And as I said, they had their reasons, and we have them in the book now. And then when we got Teresa out of the nursing home, we actually recorded that too. So I think it was a newspaper article I was reading recently about an employment lawyer, and he said that his advice to clients is always to record events. If they're being harassed or something, you've got to start recording, because if you don't have a recording, it didn't happen. And that's the way that I felt. It was like an insurance policy. I'm going to record this just in case things really go off the rails. And ultimately, they did. Right. And so the fact that I had proof has been invaluable.
Yeah. And something that I tell my clients that I work with in the United States is I help them navigate through the special education world while their children are in school. So it wouldn't necessarily, what I'm saying, apply to your particular situation, but it's the same principle of if you have a meeting with somebody and it's a phone conversation meeting or it's a in-person conversation meeting, follow that up with an email that summarizes what you understood and what your takeaway was from the conversation. And then, kind of the last line of the email saying, if I have any of this incorrect, or if my, understanding is incorrect, please let me know. And that way it's recorded, and it is. If they don't respond, then that is them without saying it. Well, that's what is correct. And that's how I think about it.
Yes. That's great advice. So years ago, around 2000, I started a website called officepolitics.com. And in 2009, I published a book called Dear Office Politics. And it's an ethics book. It's an ethics game that people can play to just practice their ethical decision-making. And so the way that the book works, very briefly, is the front of the book is letters from all over the world about office politics problems. And the second half of the book is the answers by so-called experts. Now, we may not agree with those experts. We may have different solutions. And so there's a grid at the front of the book on that you can judge the advice that you're being given. Is it in the person's best interest? did you put yourself in the person's shoes? The power test, who has the power? Is it the boss or is it the employee? In this case, if you go public, you have a lot of power. And then finally, the TV news test. How will this play on the TV news? And in any ethical decision in real life, it's very useful. I find to use this quadrant for decision making.
That is really interesting. Thank you for sharing that. I will be sure to pull that up and do my best to put the link over in the comment section so that anyone will be able to find it. One of the things that you mentioned privately to me was the saying that nothing about us without us. That saying, and anyone who's in the disability community for any length of time has probably heard that saying. And so, first of all, in case there's someone who doesn't know what that means, tell us what that means to you, and then how that helped or hurt your situation.
Well, when my siblings were planning Teresa's life without her, I was saying Teresa should really be at the table. She should be present to decide about her future. And I was overruled. But in fact, it was a good idea, and it was something that is that all disability activists know of, I think, called Nothing About Us Without Us. And Teresa really should have been at the table deciding what her future would be. So, how other people were deciding what her life was going to be. And that isn't fair. And that's the way I felt back then. And that's the way I feel today. That if anyone is listening who is disabled or has a disabled member of their family, they need to be at the table deciding their own lives.
Yeah. And I sometimes feel that we're not really thinking about how much our own thought processes are different than the person that we're making the decisions for. And if we're not including them, then how will we ever know if what we're thinking is best for them is actually what they want? I mean, sometimes I think we get in that of, well, this is what's best for them, and they just don't know what's best for them. And that doesn't matter who them is.
Yeah. It's a very patriarchal sort of decision making. It's like father knows best for the child, and it's not the case. We're all individuals, and we have the right and deserve to exercise the right to make our own decisions in life. And now we might be supported in making those decisions, but we should not be absent from the decisions. So one of the neat changes is by moving from Ontario, which had a very patriarchal system called the power of attorney, to British Columbia. British Columbia has a system where you have the representation agreement, and Teresa was able to have supported decision-making so she could make her own decision with help. And that's what we've done in the last 11 years, and it's fabulous.
Yeah, and so that's a great point that you brought up, is the differences between the provinces. So we kind of have a little bit of that in the United States as well, where some states and some schools, their policies are written a little bit different, or they can, have more supports in their community than other areas can, or they're legislated to have more supports in their community. And so it sounds like that's the same. I mean, at least in those two provinces, is that the same for the rest of the provinces as well, that they're slightly differing in how they're working with their families?
I think most provinces have the same system as Ontario, and BC is really one of the very few. I think there are only 2 or 3 that have the supported decision making.
Okay. But, yeah, and so when Teresa was in school, which I know, you probably don't have a lot of memories about because you weren't involved with it and her as much at the time, probably. But did she get supports in school while she was there?
Well, Teresa, my parents were fabulous champions, first of all, for Teresa. And they had Teresa in the same school I was in, which was a private girls' school. So it was fantastic. And Teresa went all the way through that school and then to another school for high school, which was a normal school. And, she graduated from, I think it was grade 12.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
That's fabulous. So we do have, I just want to say hi to Fran. She is joining us from Southern Illinois. So Fran, I know you're joining a little bit late. So just, Franke is the author of the book Freeing Teresa, and Teresa is her sister who has Down syndrome, and her family was going to place her sister in a nursing home. And the reason I'm going into this full description is because I know Fran personally, and I know that this story will probably resonate with her. So I don't typically give a synopsis when someone joins later than what we started. But I have a feeling that Fran probably has a couple of questions or comments for you. So I just wanted to give her that information as much as possible. So there's just so much that we've talked about so far that I would like, to have you elaborate on. I think
a very important thing that I haven't mentioned yet is that in order to get Teresa into the nursing home, there was participation by my siblings, but also by the system, and the system was arranged to test Teresa, and they decided with the tick of a box that she was incapable. So that took away all her rights to decide where she lived. And that happened back in September of 2013. We didn't find out until we saw the paperwork in January and presented to the Ontario government Teresa's story.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And I mean, it's really frightening that a group of people can surround any individual and say, you're not capable of living on your own. We're going to put you away. And, they took away Teresa's rights to decide where she lived. And subsequently, Teresa has published 2 books of art and poetry. And she's become a champion for change for human rights. And she got the government apology. So she's done a lot in the last 11 years.
So that's a beautiful segue into talking about those limiting beliefs that people tend to have of others who have disabilities. And honestly, the experiences that I've had, it's not just people with disabilities. It's anyone who's different than ourselves in some way. And so kudos. I mean, 2 books is amazing, but what other kinds of limits has she been able to bust through her entire life, not just in the 11 years that you've had her, but of course that's what your book is about. But what other sorts of things has she accomplished?
Well, she went to a normal school, which I think is fantastic, but also with my mother's help from the time Teresa was little, she was an infant, and she was taking personal training lessons with a fitness instructor. And Teresa learned how to climb the ropes. And we have photos of her climbing the ropes as 3 and 4 years old, which is amazing. So she definitely was, busting the myth that people with Down syndrome can't do gymnastics.
Right, exactly. And so Fran says that's awesome, not putting the limitations just because of a label. And this is why I thought that she would be interested in your story, because her son also has Down syndrome. And Fran herself became someone with a disability a few years ago. And I think she too has experienced some people's perspectives of her abilities and how limiting that they have done that to her. And as far as what she can understand, and I think that's the same thing that's been happening to Teresa. People just saying well, she's not going to understand, so we're just going to make these decisions for her, and we're not even going to bother to ask her because she doesn't understand the completeness of what would be happening.
Yes. And so often, I'm sorry to interrupt, I will ask Teresa a question and I'll try to explain it. I might do a drawing as well to help her to understand it. And she still won't get it. And then days later, she'll come up with the answer. And I go, oh my God, she really did understand. That's fantastic. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And sometimes it is. It's a processing thing. And it just has to kind of mill around in the brain. And then, it works its way out. I do want to share your social links. So we've got an Instagram, which is instagram.com/Franke.James. LinkedIn is the linkedin.com/in/Franke James. And then Mastodon, which is mastodon.online/@Franke James. And for anyone listening who may not be watching, so you don't see the spellings of these things, Franke is Franke, and then James is the typical James spelling. Mastodon is not a site that I am familiar with. Could you explain that one to me, please?
Well, I loved being on Twitter, but because of the political changes on Twitter, I've abandoned it. And so I was looking for another social media site, and Mastodon is really lovely. I can share articles there. I can, chat with people. It really is a good fit. I like it.
Perfect. And then also, I have to find it back. I do have your website as well, which is freeingteresa.com. And Teresa is spelled TERESA.com. And that is where they can purchase your book, correct?
They can see the links, and the links are a variety of, it's the library, independent bookstores, and Amazon.
Beautiful. Wonderful. So I don't want to end the conversation. I just wanted to make sure to get those things out there so that if anybody is interested in finding you, that they can do that. And then I'll try to remember to share them again at the end so that if anyone wants to find you and they didn't catch it the first time round, then they can hopefully catch it then at the end. So what kinds of things are you and your sister doing now?
Well, we're doing artwork and video recording and, going out to dinner. We're having fun together. And Teresa is part of our lives. My husband is my life, and it's so important. And I wanted to mention one thing is that we have an audiobook of Freeing Teresa, if anyone listens to audiobooks. And it's really fun. Sort of fun because the whole cast is a very dramatic retelling of the story. And there are 13 actors, and 2 of them have Down syndrome. And one of the actors with Down syndrome, everyone will probably know, is Lauren Potter, who was in Glee on TV for a number of years.
That's awesome. I'm not aware of audiobooks being that dramatic retelling with all the different voices. So that would be very interesting to listen to.
Well, I was trying to imagine if I read the whole book, I would have to put on funny voices for my siblings, and I didn't want to do that. And I didn't want to say what they were saying. So hiring actors to do it worked out just fine. The voices are all very different. And my voice, my role is played by Jackie Blackmore, who has a lovely voice and inflection to her delivery, just beautiful.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I'll probably get the book. As I told you in the beginning, I tend not to read the books of my guests beforehand because I'm always afraid I'm going to let something out that, you really want them to buy the book and find out there for themselves. And so I may have to get the audio version just so I can hear that. So something that you told me beforehand is you have some exciting new adventures ahead of you. You found a wonderful new home.
Yes. We're so we have been living in a condo for 10 years in Vancouver, and it's lovely. It's got a great view. However, I've always sort of yearned for my own home, for what we originally had.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have got, we just found the right home, and it's an accessible home. So it actually will be okay with the disability that Teresa has, or with my disability of ataxia.
Oh, yes. We haven't even talked about your disability of ataxia. So I'm glad you brought that up. So tell us what ataxia is and how it has affected you specifically.
Well, I'm still investigating. I think that I'm in the early stages. I've had a balance disorder for about 5 years, and I kind of wondered, like, why is my balance off? Why did I almost lose my balance then? And after much testing, so the MRIs and hearing tests, etc., the doctors have finally said that I have ataxia. But what is the reason that I have ataxia? So we're doing genetic testing to find out. And, I'm using a cane now to walk around. And in terms of the disabilities that other people have, it is, there's still a significant disability, but I appreciate that I can manage mine and still live life to the fullest.
Yeah. And so Fran says it's so important to live life to the fullest and not just do societal expectations. And that's so very true, because I think societal expectations are too low in most situations. It's actually something that I teach about, is the fact that if we can see someone's disability, our expectation tends to actually be lower. But if we don't see their disability, our expectations tend to be higher.
Right.
And so, like with Teresa having the Down syndrome, that's usually a visible disability because of the facial features and the body forming and whatnot.
Yes.
And so to have those lower social expectations for her, but also, again, just thinking about your family members that felt that the nursing home was the appropriate place for her. Is that kind of typical?
This was really a wake-up call for me to a word that I didn't know before, and I now know now, and it is ableism. So ableism is the discrimination of people with disabilities, and it can be unconscious or conscious. And it is that type of undermining of the other person's value by saying, oh, they can't do that. We shouldn't allow them to do that. And certainly with Teresa, I felt that it was very unfair to lock her up at 49. And the idea of ableism is really, if we think of racism or sexism, is the same type of limitations that people are putting on people because of their abilities. And it's so unfair.
Right. So does Teresa have a job, or does she not want one? Or
her job is being an artist, an author.
Okay.
And a self-advocate. And that's a very important job, and really expressing herself. And you can see it and hear it in the poems that she has in the book. They're wonderful conversations. Basically, her self-talk are her poems. And so we recorded her self-talk, and Teresa took the recordings and edited them down so that they became poems.
Okay. And where can people purchase her books and her artwork?
Amazon.com.
Oh, okay.
And it's called, one book is called Pretty Amazing, How I Found Myself in the Downtown East Side. And the second book is 2018, and Teresa is called Totally Amazing, Free to Be Me. And it's so true. Teresa should just have the opportunity to be free and to enjoy her life.
Yeah. So speaking of websites, I do want to share your website really quickly, just so everyone that is watching, well, maybe. Okay. My system has updated. There we go. Okay. I had put something in the middle, covered up the options. So I was like, what happened to all my normal options of seeing things? And I couldn't see them. So, so here's your website, freeingteresa.com. And like you said, you've got the audiobook where they can listen and meet the cast. You've got interviews. This is the one that I want to go to, though, because you mentioned to me right before we went live that you have recently won more awards.
Yes, it was really, really stunning. So we were at 18 awards for the audiobook and the print book, and we're now at 27. And
wow, congratulations.
It really is stunning to get 27 awards. We're enjoying them and announcing them shortly. We haven't announced the additional bump up of awards yet.
Okay, well, we won't say the names of them then, but we'll just know and celebrate with you that you now have 27 awards for this book. So when did the book come out?
October 23.
Okay.
Yeah. And
I thought it had been.
Yeah, that was to celebrate Teresa's 10 years of freedom. And
okay.
Because we got Teresa out November 30th, 2013.
Okay. And I see the Pushing for Change podcast.
Yes.
So, do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Well, I've been on a number of different podcasts, and this one is a feature about Pushing for Change by Kevin Brown. And he had a disability, and we talked about Teresa's disability, and it was a great conversation.
Awesome. So I apologize because I thought that was your podcast that I had just forgotten somehow that you did. So my apologies for that. I was
the other icon. You see the all the squares, and I'm sort of the middle top, and Teresa is as middle. Those are different podcasts that I've been on, and in some cases Teresa, and so people can go to the website and listen to the different interviews there.
Awesome. And again, that is freeingteresa.com. I'm going to pop that back up here. And
thank you.
You're welcome. Still take the website, unless there was some other place that you wanted me to go to on the website. No. Okay. All right. Perfect. So I'm sorry, I guess because it's Christmas Eve, my brain is just kind of like, I think we've covered it all already, which is kind of unusual for me. So I do want to, though, make sure that, of the things that you thought you were going to talk about today, that you've had ample opportunity to do so. I mean, I think if I asked you to just brag on Teresa, I think you could take up several hours. And I know we've hit the highlights today of a lot of the things a lot of the limits that she's busted through. But is there anything else that we didn't talk about that you would like to definitely mention?
And I think that I would like to mention the idea that each of us has the opportunity to speak up, and things happen behind the scenes, say in any family where they're making decisions. And it is important for the individual to speak up. And in my case, it was to defend Teresa. And maybe in your family, it's someone else another family member who is being ostracized for some reason, maybe for their sexuality or gender or whatever. But it's so important to speak up and defend their right to be themselves.
That is a beautiful sentiment, and I appreciate you sharing that today. Well, I think, as I said, my brain is just blank. Like I said, I think I'm just thinking it's Christmas and it's Christmas Eve, and I hope that we have shared your story beautifully today. I feel like we have, but I hope that you feel that as well. Teresa sounds like an amazing person, and I'm so thankful that you were there in her life to protect her and to help amplify her voice, which I feel is what you did. I don't believe that you spoke for her. I feel as though you amplified her voice and helped make sure that her voice was heard in deciding for her life.
And Teresa has blossomed or taken flight as a butterfly.
Yes, absolutely. I do want to ask one question, and I hope that this isn't too personal. I presume that there was, a lot of angst among your siblings and yourself when all of this happened. And I'm hoping that now that it's been this many years later, that they have seen that you made the right choice. She and you made the right choice for her. And hopefully there's been some forgiveness and some bridge building again. Is that the case?
Unfortunately, no. No.
I'm sorry to hear that.
No, but the important thing is that it can happen at any time, and that we have to go on, and we have our own lives. We're going to enjoy our life, and Teresa is going to enjoy her life, despite the rules that my siblings have put on Teresa or on my life, and so we're proud of that, and we're happy.
Yeah, and that actually, my brain just woke up. That actually brings me to something, because I hear, I don't have someone with a disability in my immediate family, and so I just love to share other people's stories. But something that I hear often is what you just expressed without expressing it, is that it can be a dividing factor among families, and it can also be an ostracizing factor. And so I want to encourage people to live as you're living, that, if what you're doing isn't harming someone else, and you need to, as the holidays are here, not go to a family gathering because of someone in your family who that's just too much for them, then do what is healthy and good for your family. And hopefully the other families will understand. But if they don't, that's okay. It's difficult, but it's okay. And I hope that it's not continuing to be ostracizing for families. That's part of the reason that I do this, is to help get people's stories out there so that maybe some other family who has a similar situation can say, you know what, their family is doing this, or that person is doing that. And that helped me understand maybe my family's situation. And so I don't feel like I'm expressing it very well right now, but I do very much appreciate that you stood up, and not that it's easy, not that it's your heart's desire to not be in a good relationship with your siblings, but you had to do what you had to do for Teresa.
Yes, that's right. Teresa could not defend herself against a group who were intent on putting her into the nursing home. So it was important for me to step up and protect her and help her advocate to get out of the nursing home and to live her life to the fullest. And that's what we've done, thank goodness. And this is also what Dad wanted, and what my mother, who is dead, would have wanted, that Teresa is given the opportunity to live her life to the fullest.
Yeah, and that's so important. And I really appreciate Fran's comment here that advocating is not easy or a sprint, but a lifelong marathon.
So true.
And I appreciate what Fran does for her children and herself now, and what you are doing for yourself with the ataxia and with Teresa. And it's very important, as I said, to amplify voices. And I hope that happens through #NoLimits, because I agree with you that everyone has a right to be involved in what's happening in their life to their fullest extent, and to not have somebody say, well, they can't, so we're not going to, and to just end it there. So, okay.
Well, thank you very much, Shelley, for giving me this opportunity to talk about freeing Teresa and Teresa Hartchild. It's been wonderful. And I hope that people will reach out if they have any questions. I'm happy to answer them.
Perfect. Thank you so much for saying that. And again, her website is freeingteresa.com, and I'm going to pop up her social media links again. We have Instagram.com/Franke.James. LinkedIn is just linkedin.com/in/Franke James. And then mastodon.online/@Franke James. And make sure you visit her website. Make sure you check out Amazon and check out both hers and Teresa's books, and support them in what they are doing. And again, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. The next time I am on, it will be 2025, which that seems crazy. But I so much appreciate all of you for tuning in. Thank you, Fran, for your comments, and for tuning in. Anyone else that joined, thank you for joining us as well. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Hey, parents and teachers, are you tired of IEP meetings that feel like a battle? Let's put an end to the tension and create a collaborative, calm, and respectful environment together. Shelley Keno, your go-to IEP consultant, can transform your meetings into positive and productive experiences. With Shelley Keno, your child is her top priority, your voice is heard, and you become confident. Shelley Keno is making the world better for all, one IEP at a time. Visit www.shelleykeno.com for more information and set up your free 20-minute consultation today. That's shelleykeno.com, SHELLEYKENOW.